Good morning and welcome back to Live Without Limits. Transform your thinking to redesign your life, where we talk about creating daily success, not just your work, but in your life, your mindset, and your well being. And in this show, the title of this particular show is Listen to Your Mind, Knowing When to Pause for Your Mental Health. And I'm your host, Davida Shensky. So let's get started with a moment that might sound familiar to you. A few years ago, I was juggling three big projects at once. I was checking things off my to-do list and answering emails late into the night and pushing myself harder every single day. On the outside, I looked like I had it all together, but inside, I was running on empty. I remember one morning that I sat down at my desk, stared at my screen, and just couldn't do it. My body was there, but my mind had tapped out. That was the moment I realized I hadn't stopped to check in with myself in weeks. I had ignored every signal that my mind and body were trying to send to me. That's what today's episode is all about. Listening to your mental health and learning when it's time to pause. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to treat mental health as an afterthought. We focus so much on productivity and meeting deadlines that we forget that we're human beings, not machines. Measure success by how much we do, not by how well we're doing internally. But here's the truth. If you never check the engine, you'll eventually break down no matter how fast you're driving. So what is it that it actually means to listen to your mental health? It means recognizing when thoughts are scattered, when your emotions feel heavy, or when your motivation has quietly slipped out the back door. It's paying attention to the whispers of your mind before they turn into screams. It's asking questions like, how am I really doing today? What am I avoiding or pushing through that needs attention? Am I running on purpose or running on autopilot? This episode will help you turn and tune into these questions. Explore the signals that you might be missing and give yourself permission to pause without guilt, because sometimes the most powerful step forward is the decision to stop and breathe. What does it mean to listen to your mental health? What does it really mean to listen to your mental health? It's a phrase that we hear more and more these days, but let's break it down into something practical, something that you can actually use in your day-to-day life. Listening to your mental health starts with training and tuning into that and paying attention to three key areas: your emotions, your energy levels, and your thought patterns. So let's start with your emotions. Your emotions are messengers. They are not random or inconvenient, although sometimes they sure feel that way. When you feel frustrated, anxious, numb, or even overly irritable, your emotional state is trying to tell you something. Maybe you need rest. Maybe something feels out of alignment. Or maybe you're carrying more than you've acknowledged. When we pause and ask ourselves, what am I feeling and why? We give our mental health the space it needs to speak. Next is energy. Have you ever had days where getting out of bed feels like a victory? Or time when simple tasks suddenly feel monumental? That's not laziness. That's a signal. Your energy level is a direct indicator of your mental state. When your brain is overworked or emotionally burdened, your body follows. Now, let's talk about your thoughts. When your mental health is struggling, your thoughts tend to get loud and not in a good way. Maybe you catch yourself thinking things like, I'm not doing enough. What's the point? Or I just can't handle this. Those aren't just thoughts, they're red flags. Negative self talk, racing thoughts, or obsessive worries are signs that your mind is under pressure and it's time to take notice. But here's the part that most people miss. There's a difference between stress and overwhelm. Stress is part of life. It's short term. It usually has a clear cause, and it can even motivate us in small doses. But overwhelm is different. Overwhelm feels like you're drowning. It feels like you can't think straight, can't decide what matters, or can't even find where to begin. And the scary part is we often don't recognize the shift until we're already deep into it. That's why listening is so important. You have to catch the signals early, the tightness in your chest, the constant fatigue, the snappy responses, the Saturday night dread. These are your mind's way of saying, hey, something needs attention here. And guess what? You're allowed to respond. You're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to step back. You're allowed to take care of your mental health without feeling guilty. Because when you listen early, you prevent the crash later. Signs that you might need to pause. So now that we've talked about what it means to listen to your mental health, let's dig into the signs that it might be time to pause before your mind or body forces you to. Sometimes the signs are subtle, other times they're loud and unavoidable. Either way, learning to recognize them early can save you from burnout, emotional crashes, or even health problems. Let's start with the emotional indicators. If you've been feeling unusually irritable, snapping at people you normally have patience for, or just carrying around this constant low level frustration, you're not just in a bad mood, Your irritability could be a sign of mental fatigue, or maybe it's not anger, maybe it's sadness, even if you can't pinpoint the cause, or worse, apathy, that feeling of emotional flatness where nothing excites you and everything feels like a chore. That's your emotional dashboard flashing red. Next are the cognitive signs, how your brain is functioning under pressure. When you struggle to focus on even the simplest tasks, when your thoughts feel scattered or foggy, it's not that you're disorganized, it could be mental overload. And pay attention to your inner voice. Is it full of doubt, criticism, or defeat? Phrases like, I'm never going to catch up, I'm not just good enough, or what's the point? These aren't just passing thoughts. They're indicators that something deeper needs care. Now, let's talk about your body. Your body keeps score always. If you're feeling constantly tired or after a full night's sleep, if your sleep is broken or you wake up with your mind already racing, if you've got unexplained headaches, tension in your neck and shoulders, or frequent stomach issues, these are your body's SOS signal. Stress doesn't just live in your head, it lives in your muscles, your gut, your immune system. Ignoring it only makes it louder over time. And finally, watch your behavior. Have you started pulling away from people, skipping calls or events because it just feels like too much? That's isolation. And it's a protective response, but it can become a trap. Or maybe you find yourself procrastinating, not out of laziness, but because your brain is too tired to make decisions. Maybe you feel emotionally disconnected from your goals, your passions, even the people you love. These aren't personally personality flaws. These are signs and they're valid. Here's the thing, you don't need to hit rock bottom to justify a break. You don't need to be on the verge of a breakdown to say, I need to pause. The earlier you recognize these signs, the more power you have to protect your peace and restore your energy. You have the power to take control over your life. Now, why we ignore the signs and why that's harmful. So let's talk about the big question. If the signs are there, why do we ignore them? Why do we push through stress, silence our emotions, or keep going even when everything inside us is begging for a break? It comes down to a few deeply ingrained beliefs and the pressure that we've all been taught to live under. First, there's the cultural pressure to keep going. We live in a world that glorifies hustle. From a young age, many of us were taught that slowing down is lazy, that taking a break means falling behind, Productivity is praised, and burnout is worn like a badge of honor. You hear things like sleep when you're dead, grind now, rest later. Winners don't quit. But here's the truth: the mindset is dangerous because when we equal self worth with constant output, we start to feel guilty for doing anything that isn't work, even if it's something we desperately need, like rest or emotional recovery. And that brings me to the next point: the guilt and the shame around rest. Have you ever tried to take a break only to feel restless for the entire time? Like you should be doing something, like taking care of yourself. Somebody makes you weak, selfish, or unproductive. Or rather, let's say this again. When you take care of yourself, somehow it makes you feel weak, selfish, and unproductive. But that's not your fault. That's programming. Remember, when we talk about the things we hear in our heads, those are things that have been put there by someone else. And we've internalized it so much that we keep hearing it over and over again. And that's where the laws of attraction comes in. And the secret talks about is how to reprogram your thoughts so that you don't feel like you can't take time to refresh yourself and take care of your own mental health. We've been conditioned to see rest as something we have to earn. We rest, or rather, rest is not a reward, it's a requirement. Just like eating, breathing, or sleeping, your mind and body need downtime to heal, to recharge, and to function at their best. And here's where it gets real: there's long term cost to ignoring your mental health. When you consistently ignore the signals, when you push through the headaches, the irritability, the brain fog, you're not building strength. You're building a slow collapse. Unchecked stress becomes anxiety. Unacknowledged sadness becomes depression. Prolonged tension in the body becomes chronic illness. You don't just burn out, you break down emotionally, physically, spiritually. And often, by the time you finally allow yourself to stop, the damage has already been done. But it doesn't have to get that far. You don't have to wait for a breakdown to give yourself a break. You don't need anyone's permission to take care of your own mental health, because here's the truth that culture doesn't tell you often enough: react and rest is productive. Pausing is powerful. Listening to your mental health is how you keep going, not what stops you. The power of the pause. So far, we've talked about managing and recognizing the signs that you need a break and why so many of us push through these signals out of pressure or guilt. Now, Let's shift the focus to something more empowering: the power of the pause. When we talk about pausing for your mental health, we're not just talking about doing nothing. We're talking about three powerful actions that can reset your emotional and mental well-being. Rest, reflection, and reset. Rest is the physical and emotional. It's giving yourself permission to stop without rising, to fill the silence. It could be sleep, stillness, or simply stepping away from constant stimulation. Reflection is the inner work, asking yourself, what's really going on with me right now? It's checking in, journaling, or having an honest conversation with yourself. This is where awareness begins. And then there's reset, taking action based on what you discovered during the pause. Maybe it's setting boundaries, changing your schedule, or finally asking for help. Now, pauses can look different depending on your needs. Sometimes all you need is a short pause, just a few minutes of conscious breathing, stretching, or stepping outside. These micro breaks are powerful because they stop the mental spiral and bring you back to the present. And sometimes you need a longer pause, a day off, a weekend unplugged, a full digital detox, maybe even a few weeks to recalibrate your goals and your energy. And if you're wondering, can pausing really change anything? Let me share a few examples. One of my clients, let's call her Sarah, was running a successful business but felt stuck. She kept trying to push through creative blocks, forcing productivity. I encouraged her to take just 1 week off. No laptop, no emails, just rest and real life connection. That 1 week, she came back with not just renewed energy, but with a new idea for a program that ended up doubling her income in the next quarter. Another person I worked with was constantly anxious, overthinking every decision. She started a simple habit: 5-minute breathing breaks 3 times a day. Within 2 weeks, she told me, I feel like I have space to think again. The breakthrough doesn't come in spite of the pause, they come because of it. When you pause, you create room for clarity, you create room for creativity, you create space to hear your intention, to feel your truth, and to come back stronger. So here's the reminder: you don't need to earn your pause, you deserve it. And often, that pause is the very thing that puts you back on the path you were meant to walk, with more peace, with purpose, and more power. By now, you've probably realized that just how important it is to pause, reflect, and actually listen to your mental health. But awareness alone isn't enough. We need a system, a habit of checking in with ourselves regularly, not just when we're falling apart. So how do you do that? Well, let's start with daily reflection practices. This doesn't have to be complicated. Some people love journaling, writing freely for 5 to 10 minutes about how they're feeling, what they're thinking, and what's weighing on them. Others prefer self-check in questions, simple prompts that help you get clear on your emotional state. Try asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? What do I need emotionally or physically? Am I operating from peace or pressure today? You can answer these mentally, out loud, or write them down. The goal is honesty, not perfection. Now, let's talk about scheduling regular mental health breaks. Think of these like appointments with yourself and treat them with the same respect you give a meeting or a client. Block off time each day, even just 10 to 15 minutes, to step away. That might look like a walk without your phone, a few deep breaths by the window, listening to music that calms you, or just sitting quietly with your thoughts. These micro breaks act like resets for your nervous system. They don't take long, but they make a massive difference over time. It's essential to know that your early warning signs and have a plan to respond. This is personal. Your signs might be different from mine. For some, it's the irritability. For others, it's brain fog, sleepless nights, or forgetting simple things. So ask yourself, what are the first signs that I'm becoming mentally or emotionally overloaded? When these signs show up, what helps me come back into balance? Who can I reach out to for support if I need it? Write it down. Keep it somewhere visible, because when stress hits, we often forget what helps us. A response plan keeps you grounded. Maybe your plan includes taking mental health day, calling a friend, turning off notifications, saying no to new commitments, or booking time with a coach or therapist. Whatever it is, own it. You are your own first responder when it comes to mental health. The earlier you act, the earlier it is to recover. So, here's your challenge this week. Pick one check-in question and ask it every day. Schedule one short break into your calendar and write down one early warning sign and what you'll do when it shows up. Because taking care of your mental health isn't just a rescue mission, it's a daily practice. When to seek additional help. Let's have an honest conversation now. One of that's just as important as everything we've covered so far, because while daily check-ins, pauses, and mindfulness are essential, sometimes a pause isn't enough. Sometimes what you need isn't just a break, it's support. So what's the difference between taking a pause and seeking professional help? A pause is something that you do on your own. to rest, reflect, and recharge. It can help you reset when you're feeling overwhelmed, overworked, or emotionally tired. But when the weight doesn't lift, when your thoughts become too heavy to carry, or when your coping tools no longer work, it's time for more than a pause. That's when you need to reach out. So here are some of the red flags that it may take to speak with a therapist, a counselor, or a mental health professional. You feel persistently sad, hopeless, or emotionally numb for more than 2 weeks. Your anxiety is constant and it's interfering with your daily life or sleep. You're experiencing mood swings, panic attacks, or emotional outbursts that you can't explain. You've lost interest in things that you need to enjoy. You feel isolated, disconnected, or like no one understands. You've had thoughts of self-harm or feel like life is too hard to handle alone. You're using substances, food, or distractions to numb how you feel. These aren't signs of weakness, they're signals that you've been carrying too much for too long without enough support. And let me say this for anyone who needs to hear it, asking for help is not giving up, it's slowing up for yourself. There is incredible courage in saying, I can't do this alone anymore. There is strength in seeking guidance. There is wisdom in knowing the healing sometimes requires a professional. Therapy isn't just for crisis, it's for clarity, for growth, for learning how to navigate life with tools, perspective, and support. So if you've been on the fence, consider this your invitation. You are worth the effort. You are worth the investment, and you are not alone. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with something simple but powerful. A reminder that you don't have to wait for burnout, breakdown, or crisis to check in with yourself. You deserve peace when before pain. You deserve care without condition. And most of all, you deserve to treat yourself with compassion and criticism. Listening to your mind is an act of self-respect. It's saying, my thoughts and feelings matter. My energy matters. I matter. So here's a question to carry with yourself today. What is your mind trying to tell you now? Maybe it's saying, I need rest. Maybe it's whispering, I feel overwhelmed and I don't know why. Maybe it's shouting, please stop and listen. Whatever it is, your job isn't just to judge it. Your job is to notice it, to honor it, to respond with care. It's that you're up for it. Here's a journal prompt that you can use today. What have I been feeling lately, but haven't made time to understand? Let your thoughts flow. No filters, no fixing, just awareness. Or try this simple calming exercise. Take a deep breath, hold it for a moment, and slowly breathe out. Do it 2 more times. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw relax. Let yourself be, because in the stillness, your truth has space to speak. Think. And I want to take this time to thank you for being with me today. Thank you for choosing to slow down, reflect, and care for your mental health. And if this episode helped you, then consider sharing it with someone who might need the same reminder. You never know who's carrying more than what they're letting on. So until next time, take care of your mind. It's the home that you live in every single day.